Da 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 dum da dum da 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 lo alecha hamlacha ligmor lo alecha ligmor lo alecha hamlacha ligmor lo alecha ligmor velo ata ben chorin lehiva tel mimena velo ata ben chorin velo ata ben chorin lehiva tel mimena velo ata ben chorin lo alecha hamlacha ligmor lo alecha ligmor lo alecha hamlacha ligmor lo alecha ligmor da 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 dum da da dum da dum da dum da da dum da 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 dum da 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 dum. Welcome, everyone. Some of you I can see, some of you I can't see. I'm thinking, Andrea, are you able to turn on your microphone so that folks there can join in with their voices?
Hello?
Hi there. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Rose Aronowitz.
I'm so glad to meet you, Rose Aronowitz. I'm Rabbi Michael Cohen, and this is our Torah study for this week for Shabbat, Parashat VaYakhel. And I usually start my session with a song and end my session with a song. And folks are having trouble connecting with us, Rose. Did you get the printout of the sheet the study sheet that I sent?
I don't think I did.
All right. Well, I'm going to read, and if people can join in and converse with me, that would be wonderful. I'm so glad that I can hear you.
So if I screw up, you'll understand why.
Absolutely, Rose.
I only know how to turn my iPad on and off.
Very good. Very good.
I mean, this place is lovely, but I want to go home.
Amen. Absolutely. All
I
right.
want to go home.
Some folks are able to connect with us in varying degrees. Looks like Lisa Harris is not having a successful connection over at Willow Bend. But is that Buddy Rosenthal? Maybe, I don't know.
I have no idea who anybody is. I'm
Okay.
in the re.
All right. So
I'm in.
I'm going to begin and share with you in this Torah portion, the Lord has commanded the Israelites to bring treasures from which to build the Mishkan, the tabernacle. And I'm going to read some of the rabbinical learning about this, and maybe we can discuss it. The first topic is overflowing generosity. This is what the Lord has commanded. Take from among you gifts to the Lord. Everyone whose heart so moves him or her shall bring these gifts: gold, silver, copper, blue, purple, and crimson yarns, fine linen and goat's hair, dolphin skins and acacia wood, oil for lighting, spices for the anointing oil and for the aromatic incense, lapis lazuli, and other stones for setting, for the ephod and the breastplate. Those were things that the priests would wear in the sanctuary. So these are the things that Moses conveyed to the Israelites. Bring these so we can put Bezalel, the great artist and craftsman, to work to design the sanctuary. And here's another quote from Exodus. The people are bringing more than is needed. Moses thereupon proclaimed throughout the camp, let no man or woman make further effort toward gifts for the sanctuary. So the people stopped bringing. Their efforts had been enough for all of the tasks to be done and more. So can you imagine a fundraising campaign where there's so much raised that the fundraisers have to say, stop? I don't think we don't experience that usually in the modern world, but that's what happened on this momentous occasion in the book of Exodus when the tabernacle was going to be built. And
will be using mine. It'll just be. Yeah, but in here, there's a different. I don't see my Wi-Fi connection.
yeah, Andrea, can you mute while you're conversing? And I'm glad you're here. I know you're having a lot of trouble connecting this morning. So we'll have to work on this with our tech director. That's an important thing. But so what I've just shared is that the people brought more riches and treasures to Moses to build a sanctuary than he even asked for or that they could use. And so he said, stop. Now, Rabbi Art Green, who's a modern commentator and one of my teachers, writes this about what happened here in this parasha. Overflowing generosity was what was needed for the making of the Mishkan, an act of human giving that did not put limits on itself. This act is comparable only to God's first gift of overflowing generosity in the creation of heaven and earth. Every Mishkan, or dwelling place for God, that we make in our lives requires such generosity of spirit. So I love Rabbi Green's understanding of what's going on here. This is in a special moment where the people were setting out to work on building a sanctuary for God, a holy place that would contain the Holy of Holies, the place where Moses would be going and meeting with God while the people were in the wilderness, the place where the people would feel the presence of God and see the presence of God in their midst, even in those 40 years of the wilderness. And what Rabbi Green tells us is that overflowing generosity is what makes something holy happen. What a beautiful message and lesson for us to take to our hearts when we do things. Sometimes we think we've given enough. We've given enough. And we hold our gifts back. But the Bible here and our commentator, Rabbi Green, are telling us that it's not enough until it's overflowing when we're trying to build something sacred. Rose, does that resonate for you? Anything in your life, your experience?
Well, I hadn't thought about it in my experience. I am really not connected to a synagogue at this time. I was a charter member of a little one that started in Carrollton. It's kind of, since I don't drive at night and there's very few people there, I don't go. But my generosity is directed towards people, individual people themselves. That way I know nothing is going towards the administration or anything like that, or nobody's grabbing something that already has enough.
Right.
So just an individual.
Mm-hmm. Well, we all have a part of us that wants to be careful with how we give to make sure it's
Right.
going to good purposes. It's being
Yes.
needed and it's being used. And here we've got two things going on. One is that, hey, enough is enough. If you've got enough to build it, then stop giving. But there's an interesting tension here of can we bring it in a spirit that is willing to let it overflow? And I think that has applications other times in our lives. Sometimes that generosity, it may not be giving money. It may not be giving gifts. It may be giving our time. It may be giving our attention. It may be giving our participation. It may be giving our ear to listen and support. But sometimes if you're in the listening and caring profession, it's hard to set limits because the needs are virtually endless. There are more needs than the caregivers can provide. So we try to do it from an open heart where the generosity flows, even to overflowing. And I think what this passage is telling us is that when we reach that place where it just flows, there's something holy, something sacred that's happening between us and another person, between us and God. It's our being is entering a state of extraordinary generosity.
Okay. I don't know how to do it. Can I talk?
Yes, you're on.
Okay. I am a widow. My husband got West Nile almost 18 years ago and died after 48 and a half years of marriage. I have spent most of my extra money and money I didn't have on getting, I've lost two children. My daughter 5 years ago, 2 years ago, my oldest son 5 years ago. And I have been smart enough to get moving and making something, move money. But that money has primarily gone to helping my daughter and putting her daughter through the Jewish schools from 5th grade on, and helping her now. She has brain cancer in New York by herself. single, 27 years old. Her mother's dead. So all these things that I could be giving to charity, I'm not able to because
Rose,
of
I'm gonna.
her and
I understand,
grandchildren.
Rose. I need to cut you off because we have a brief meeting. But I think what you're sharing with us is that you're dedicating your resources to a holy purpose, to sustaining life in loved
Right.
ones who you are aware need that help, and that's
Yes.
That's beautiful. And I'm so sorry for the losses that you have sustained. But
Yes.
please let me move on. I'm going to go to section 2 of our sheet. Um, and this is about knowing and setting limits.
Okay.
We find in the story of creation that heaven and earth kept on expanding when they were created, so that God had to stop them and say, enough. So it was that the children of Israel kept giving until God said to them, enough. This was how it had to be. They had to contribute more than was needed until they had to be told, enough. So this is a midrash, and the rabbi here, who's known as the Sfat Emet, is comparing creation, which we saw in the first section. Creation was an expanding process, and the treasures being brought by the Israelites for the sanctuary appeared to parallel that process of expanding and expanding without limits until Moses said enough. So this is interesting for a couple of different reasons. One of them is that it kind of coincides with our physical understanding, scientific understanding of the universe as expanding. I see that here, but the sages also draw other inferences. And here's another one from Rabbi Green. Once God's creative energies were released, the process of creation might have gone forward with almost instantaneous effect until all of creation, including each soul or spark that is to exist down to the end of time, would have come forth immediately. In order for the world to exist over a course of time, God had to hold back creation by calling out, enough, must speak. So too, human activity needs the same self-limitation. Knowing when to stop is part of the task of human doing. We need to leave room for future generations to also take a hand. I think, Rose, it looks like it's only you and I who are able to converse right now because other folks are having limitations on the technical connection. But
Okay.
so what does this bring to your mind, the idea of limitations and leaving room?
Well, I mean, it seems like you could always find something to give to, no matter how much that people, that the place, you could always find another place to put your money to help somebody, to help an organization. It's unlimited now because of COVID and various things in Israel, that you can always find an organization or a person. I mean, to me, it's not unlimited.
You're quite right about that. There are more needs than any of us can answer. But actually, now I want to refer back to the song that I started this session with. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. It's not upon you to finish all the work. Velo ata ben chorin, but neither is it for you as a free person lihivatel mimena, to shirk and avoid participating in the work. This is a beautiful bit of wisdom from the sages in our tradition, and it fits to this discussion of what we're talking about. That the sacred thing, we can't solve everything, we can't heal everything, we can't take care of all needs, but neither can we shirk it. The sacred thing is to get in there and participate, get our generosity flowing, whether it's of our human efforts or our monetary resources. There are needs out there, and the very act of connecting and letting our generosity flow has something sacred to it, about the essence of our being. So let me go on. Go ahead.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
I don't want to interrupt, but I just have a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Rose.
I am 88 and a half. I actually did something I shouldn't have done against my son's advice, and here I am. I broke my hip.
Mm-hmm.
I am very lucky that I'm still mentally okay, hopefully. And with the care I'm getting, I shall hopefully be home within a couple of weeks. I want to know what is going to happen to me when I breathe my last breath.
I'm going to answer that in two ways, Rose. One of them is to say that I'll come and visit you in the health center where you are, and I'll try to do that soon.
Okay.
The second way that I'll answer that just briefly is that the Bible talks about our patriarchs being gathered to their ancestors. That's the way the Bible talks about death, that we're gathered and go to our ancestors. And our Jewish liturgy in El Molei Rachamim, the God full of mercy, the prayer talks about our souls going back to the Garden of Eden. So those are two different ideas that we can talk more about, that I would love to talk more about with you. There are ideas in Judaism of reincarnation and afterlife in Jewish mysticism, a little bit different than simple reincarnation as one person, but that our souls go back into a great, perhaps, collectivity of humanity and souls, and that parts of different beings come into the new human beings who are born, so that you or I may have pieces of our sages, the great rabbis of the Talmud, or of Moses or Miriam or Abraham or Sarah. It's not that one person is Abraham reincarnated, but there are fragments of their souls in us that can be very important in how we live out our lives. So there's more to the story, perhaps, according to Jewish ideas and tradition, than that we simply are no more. I think that it's completely respectable also within Jewish tradition to say that this is all there is. This life is all we know. But now I'm going to go back to the Torah portion that I'm talking about here, and beg your leave to continue that conversation soon.
Okay.
All right. So section 3 of this week's selection of the sages is about these echoes of Genesis that we've been hearing about and reading about. The Midrash notes that Moses looked upon all of the work of God's, all the work that the Israelites had brought for the sanctuary, and that echoes the very things that we've been talking about in creation, when God brought things into being and the world was coming into being, but the creation kept on going. Creation kept on going. So the Bat Emet, a great rabbi from Eastern Europe, points out that the whole purpose of making the sanctuary was to affirm creation. And that's why there's this parallel between the portion of Exodus and the beginning in Bereshit in Genesis, that something is being created and it's growing and growing and growing. As the Zohar says, which is a great work of Jewish mysticism, God created the world by the power of Torah, and the righteous human beings affirm creation by the power of Torah. So there's two aspects of Torah being shown in these two different places in the Bible. One of them being the beginning of Genesis when God's creating the world. The second one being where the Israelites are bringing the treasures with which to build the tabernacle. Each of these is a process that's just overflowing. And the rabbis and the Midrash are drawing this connection. Torah is the means by which God brought the world into creation. And Torah is the means by which we human beings affirm everything that's good in creation.
Okay.
Yes, Keva.
Yes, Rabbi, I have a question to ask.
Yes.
My question is, what is Mount Sinai? What does that mean? Is it a place or
Yes.
is it something?
Yes, there's an echo on your side, Keva, but I hear your question about what is Mount Sinai. Sinai is also called Mount Horeb in the book of Exodus. It appears in two different places at two different names, but archaeologists and academics have identified a mountain in the Sinai desert that's called Mount Sinai that is believed to be the mountain. And there's a Catholic monastery at the foot of it called St. Catherine's. And many folks who visit Israel or now visit Egypt, because Sinai's in Egypt, can climb that mountain and have an amazing experience. We don't have very much time left, so I'm going to move on to the last portion of, but thank you for your participation. About overflow, the Midrash are the stories that the ancient rabbis told and used to try to understand the things that were missing in the biblical text, that were not explained, or what appear to be contradictions in the text. There are many collections of Midrash stories, and they have a sacredness in our tradition as well. And there's a Midrash about this passage that we've been discussing that quotes the Song of Songs, which, if you may remember, that's a portion of our Torah, of our Bible, that we actually traditionally read during Passover. It's a Song of Songs is a beautiful love song, love story, a love poem, and it's also something that traditionally is brought into this season because Passover is now soon upon us. What the Midrash quotes from the Song of Songs is that vast floods cannot quench love, nor rivers drown it. The point is that the love and attachment to God that Israel received at Mount Sinai remains alive in us forever, even when sin prevents us from bringing this hidden love out into the open. So after the sin of the golden calf, the Israelites needed to give this offering of treasure for the tabernacle. By the act of giving, the Israelites brought forth their own inner generosity and rekindled that connection that God has placed of love with the people. And we're coming to the end of our session. Our time is running out. So I'm going to close with a melody from the Song of Songs. And the words are, Kumi lach, Rayati, Afati, come my beloved, my beauty, because the winter is gone and now the rains are coming and will bring the spring. And the melody goes like this. Kumihilach. Kumihilach. Rahayati. Yahafati. Kumilach. 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 Rayati. Yahafati. Kumilach. Hine hastav. Hine hastav avar. Hageshem chalaf halach lo. Kumilach. Kumilach. Rahayati. Yahafati. Kumilach. So I have recorded this session and I'll make it available. If Catherine or Alexandria or Andrea have a